My name is David. I've lived in Bali for about 18 months now. I came here from Australia beginning of last year. Is Bali affordable long term or is it becoming more expensive? My view on that is that Bali is as affordable as you choose to make it.
G'day, my name's Al and I've been in Bali for now only about 5 months. Some things are expensive, some things aren't expensive, but I find it's a lot better because everything in Australia is expensive. So this is a better alternative even though prices are going up.
My name is Leo and Alan has invited me to comment on some aspects of living in Bali. I've lived in Bali since November last year, which makes it, 7-8 months nearly. Well, for me, not expensive. Long term, I can't tell you, but however, I am noticing it here on the west side. For me, very affordable.
You can live a relatively inexpensive life by choosing more modest accommodation and eating in more modest places, or you can make it essentially the same price as living in Australia, for example, by living in more upmarket accommodation and going to more upmarket restaurants.
What do you look for when renting a villa or a house? We've only looked for a villa, and what we looked for when we were renting a villa was we didn't want 2 stories. We're getting older, we didn't want to walk up and down stairs all the time. The villa's got to be air conditioned, it has to have a pool.
The first thing I looked for was somewhere relatively close to where my friends are, but away from the hustle and bustle of the busier parts of Bali. So where I'm currently living is literally amongst rice fields, and I can get to most things on my scooter within 5 minutes or so.
Significantly, I look for affordability. I am on the age pension, which is a primary consideration.
A lot of villas you look at, the living areas aren't air conditioned and only the bedrooms are air conditioned. I wanted to make sure that the living area was air conditioned as well, and thank God I did.
So getting somebody to verify the lease that you trust is a good thing to do, to make sure that what you are leasing or renting is okay, particularly for a long-term lease. If you're going to lease for 20 odd years, you've got to make very sure that the place you are leasing is registered or certified.
Traffic. There was a lot of villas that we looked at where there was a lot of traffic noise outside.
Pool, a garden, and the facilities I'm used to living back in Australia.
Spend time working your way around, talking to people, looking at a range of places, because if you lease the first place that you find, you may then find in a few weeks' time someone tells you, well, you could have got that for half that price.
Are there any hidden costs foreigners often overlook? Well, yes, there are. When you spot a rental for rent or to buy, you've got to take into consideration, which is not often mentioned, Wi-Fi, rubbish collection, water, electricity.
We don't overlook them, it's just a different way of doing things in Bali. We actually do pay for the same things in Australia, but it's more in your face here. Electricity, you run out and your meter box will start buzzing and you have to go get more credits, more tokens to put on your electricity.
I think there was an expectation that the cost of leases and the cost of food is cheaper than it really is.
You've got to keep an eye on your water, because your water is your big water bottles. You've got to get them ordered in and someone will deliver them to you as soon as you get on them on WhatsApp and ask them to deliver it. You can't drink the water out of the tap. You've got to get bottled water and you use that for everything. So you've got to be constantly onto it, making sure you're not out of water. Same with gas bottles.
You can quickly spend a lot of money if you're not careful.
It's like glamping. That's what Bali's like. It's like you're on holidays and you've always got to watch all the things that you need and make sure you don't run out.
How often do I use my swimming pool? When I first arrived, I used it every day. I'm using it a bit less nowadays, but I would probably use it 3 or 4 times a week.
I know Deb would be in there every day. if I wasn't a pussy and kept saying, no, it's too cold.
Every day if I can, and depending on weather, of course. I try and use it. I don't do laps. It's not big enough for laps, but I am a bit of a sun bunny, and I use the pool as often as I can.
And that might just be to jump in before I go to bed to cool down, and then that's just enough of a bit of a cool down. But sometimes I might just lie on a pool float for a few hours listening to an audiobook.
Several days I don't really want to get in the pool, so I'd say probably 3-4 days a week we'll have a swim in the afternoon.
How do I cope with the weather? For me, well, as you know, Bali has 2 seasons, a wet season and a dry season. At the moment we're in the dry season. The temperatures are quite mild. When I say mild, they're in the mid-30s, and the humidity is not as bad as what it is in the wet season.
There seems to be a system in Bali, and even for the Balinese, you do everything in the morning or everything at night. So if you go out in the morning to do your shopping, you'll see everyone at the markets getting their shopping done, but come 10 o'clock, there's not that many people around. It all quietens down between 10 and say 3 o'clock, where the hotter part of the day, and that's where you go into your aircon, you go into your pool. In the afternoons, to get away from the heat, you go get the breeze at the beach.
The secret I find is making use of the time of day. So it's not uncommon for me to be out and about before dawn. I'll go to the beach at sunrise. I'll get stuff done. Middle of the day, I'll come home and I'll be in the air conditioning or in the pool, or maybe in a local air conditioned space. Then of an afternoon going back out again as well.
I'll use the pool. I've got aircon. I'll go to the beach. So I've got 3 options at my fingertips that I can utilise at any part of the day.
The other thing is having a good weather app, knowing what the weather's going to be. There's no point having something planned, and if you'd looked on the weather app to know that it's going to be absolutely pouring with rain, you could have changed your plans. So being prepared for the weather by knowing what it's going to be.
Aircon is a must, and you find that out when you run out of power.
So what recreation activities do you do? I'm part of a dining group. I'm part of a happy hour group. So you could call that recreation, which it certainly is.
So for recreation, I go to the gym 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
There's a lot of socialising, going out for coffees, going out for beers, going out for dinner.
But every day I'll get on my scooter and I'll head down the beach and I'll walk up and down the beachfront over at Sanur. On my return, I'll probably join some mates for a morning cup of coffee, and home for the pool, depending on weather.
Where I currently live, there's a wonderful walking path amongst the rice fields. So I do that on a fairly regular basis, get out and walk. Again, that's of an afternoon or early morning when it's cooler.
There's pickleball, I think it is, and badminton, and there's a few other sports.
The other thing I do is I play a game called paddleball. I play that 2 days a week. And again, with related to the heat, we play at 6 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock at night.
What have I learned from Balinese culture that has changed my outlook on life? Probably the number one is slow down. When you're in Bali, you're on Bali time. If you make an appointment with somebody, as an example, at 11 o'clock, if they're not there by 11:30, don't worry about it. It's Bali time.
The Balinese take life very slowly. In Australia, I think we have a very hustle-bustle way of life, but the Balinese have a slow way of life, and that's one of the things I've noticed.
Balinese culture has taught me to not be as stressed as I was in Australia. In Australia, time is important. We've got to have our weekends, we've got to do things at certain times, we've got to work for the man and all that sort of stuff. In Bali, it's not like that. Bali life, there isn't really a timetable like we have at home.
And they're very kind people. There's nothing that you could ask them to do that they wouldn't do. So very helpful, kind people. and they take their culture very seriously. I've noticed most is to be very respectful of their culture and to participate where you can. So I've been invited to a range of ceremonies and take the opportunity to do that. If they invite you to participate in a ceremony, it's worth doing. It'll change your perspective and understanding of Balinese way of life.
Am I learning to speak Indonesian? Well, yes, I am. We had a schooling this morning with some mates. 20 of us gathered for an impromptu Indonesian lesson, and it's very, very social at this point of time. Learning a lot.
I had great intentions of learning to speak Balinese, Bahasa, should I say, when I first arrived, and I made a start. Then I sort of fell off the wagon a little bit because so many of the Balinese people in this part of Bali speak very good English.
Since getting to Bali, I've learnt that I don't need it because most people will speak to you in English, so you can get by. You do have the odd occasions when they don't speak English, but because tourists and expats stay in tourist areas, most people in those areas do speak English.
So I've now gone back and rejoined a group to try and improve my Bahasa. And again, part of that is because I think it's respectful of the locals to have some sense of an ability to speak their language.
I have noticed that I'm starting to pick up certain words when Balinese speak to each other, and it's starting to become a normal process where I'm learning from them.
I was there this morning and we counted from 1 till 10. Let's see how I go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There you go, 1 to 10.
How do you manage power outages or local infrastructure quirks? We have had a power outage or two. We've had a big power outage where I was out on and off for quite a while. I went down to the local supermarket. I bought 2 candles and some alfoil trays to put them on.
If it's a broader thing, information gets passed around social media to find out what's going on. Having said that, there are often scheduled power outages that you know are coming. So being aware of those and if you know the power's going to go off at 6 o'clock, being aware of that.
Your air cons go out, so you've got to suffer with the hot air during the night. Bad luck, got to toughen up.
Order in food. Most of the time I order in my food, and the local world will still operate because the vast majority of time they're operating using gas.
You find there's a lot of things that happen because the streets are so small, trucks will block the streets, or ceremonies will be on and roads are blocked and you have to take all these back detours. It's just a way of life in Bali.
The quality of roads and the quality of footpaths, again, it's an ongoing issue, but we have to remember that it's a process that the Indonesian government is working through to try and improve these things. The rate at which traffic has moved onto the roads in the last 10 years has been quite extraordinary. And I don't think any government could keep up with the usage of roads and infrastructure.
What's one thing I wished I'd packed but I didn't? Well, what I packed and didn't pack enough of: cheese and chocolate.
I wish I bought all my paints. I love painting and I didn't bring my paint supplies, and I've since realised buying them all in Bali or buying them online, it's going to cost a lot more than I thought they would.
Here in Bali, a block of chocolate will cost you at least $8, if not more.
A power pack, sort of a chargeable power pack, because sometimes you can be out and about and try to find somewhere to charge up your mobile phone was something that I was constantly finding myself, my phone running out of power and then having some way of charging it up. And if you're using your mobile phone to navigate and it's not working, when you're first here, you can get very lost. You can't do things, you can't even order a Gojek or a Grab without having your phone.
But there's nothing like the old Kraft cheddar cheese on a bit of toast and Vegemite in the morning.
And I wish I bought my SLR camera because there's some great opportunities for photography in Bali.
What do you miss from living in Australia? I think I've recently have two new granddaughters, and so I suppose my access to them is potentially a little bit less than it might have been. Having said that, I use technology to read to them every Friday, so I'm possibly having contact with them more than I was in Australia.
Family, I miss the family often, but we do have the advantage of Messenger, so I can get over that real quick after I talk to them online. Water is the thing that I struggle with. Balinese water, you can't drink with it, so it's a constant challenge of having cold water and filling bottles up non-stop. Brush your teeth, you can't brush your teeth with the water. You've got to have water in your bathroom, little bottles of water which you constantly have to fill up. It's a pain in the ass. It sounds like I'm whinging about nothing, but when you have to do it all the time, it does become annoying.
I was quite involved in musical theatre in Australia, and being on stage was something I miss significantly because there's no real equivalent to that here in Bali. I did join a choir, that partly filled that gap.
Bali water is well water and it's full of calcium, so it's a never-ending battle of cleaning glass and cleaning the sinks and cleaning the shower because it gets a white calcium base all over it. I miss having fresh water.
Well, primarily, I've got to say on a personal level, I miss my family, as all expats probably do. Miss their family. I've got 3 sons, I've got 8 grandchildren, and I've got a dog back in Australia, and I miss them. And I do look forward to going back to Australia every few months. And but then again, after a period of time, you're ready to come back here again. So yep, I miss my kids and I miss my dog.
Have you ever felt like an outsider or truly at home? I don't think I'll ever feel truly at home in Bali. Australia is home.
The majority of friends I've made here are with expats, but there are a number of local Balinese people that I consider myself friends with. And I probably need to go to a greater effort to make more contact with more local people.
I must say that when you're in an environment predominantly with Indonesians, you are a little bit, I wouldn't say ostracized, but you feel a little bit uncomfortable.
I'm always going to be a foreigner in Bali, and that's just the way it is.
I found a group, a dining club that I joined, and I attended that group on the very first week that I got here, and all of a sudden I found my tribe, as is sometimes put. So I now have a significant number of contacts, and do I feel like an outsider? No, I feel that I belong.
However, when you're in the company of expats, which I am lucky enough to do regularly, I feel quite at home. There's always something to talk about. We all have something in common.
When I go back to Australia, I'm not going home. When I fly back into Bali, I'm going home.
But as I say, I'm lucky enough to have some great people here in Bali that I associate with regularly, and they are my Bali family, and I do appreciate them greatly.
But the Balinese, even though they look at you as a foreigner, they're very welcoming and you never have a problem. I never get hassled about being a foreigner. They're all wonderful people.
Are you concerned that you'll never be able to afford to move back to Australia? One of the things that I did in my planning for that was that contingency. So I have an apartment in Melbourne that I've chosen to keep, so that at some point in time, if circumstances require that I go back to Australia, I have somewhere to go. Because once you sell out of the Australian market, the ability to buy back in would be quite prohibitive.
I'm lucky I have a house in Australia. Most expats here don't have a house to go home to in Australia, so I can only imagine what stress it would be for someone that doesn't have a house to go home to in Australia. And saying that, I've got to go home, even though I've got a house, I've still got to pay everything. So, am I worried about going home? Yes, the affordability of day-to-day living in Australia is a concern.
Well, it's not about affordability. To me, it's not about affordability. It's about whether I have the desire to go back to Australia at any one time. To be honest, I don't know at this particular point whether Bali is going to be my forever home. It may be different if I had a partner. But for me, affordability as opposed to calling Australia home are two different questions. So for me, Australia will always be my home.
If you found this video entertaining, helpful or inspiring, we'd love for you to consider subscribing to our channel and hitting that notification bell. Subscribing will ensure that you never miss out on any of our future content that we create especially for you.